Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. This is the first Dharma talk I gave in this year. Last several years, I have been talking on this text, opening the hand of thought. And last December, I finished one section, section 6. So this morning I started to talk on section 7 of this text, page 109, if we have this book. This book is Opening the Hand of Thought, written by my teacher, and I'm one of the translators of this book. And this book was written about 1970, when I was a university student. So since from the very beginning of my practice, I'm practicing following this teaching. So I think, to me at least, this is the best text to share my understanding and experience of what I have been practicing. My teacher, Okumura Roshi, is from the Soto Zen tradition. That is one of the two Zen traditions in Japan. So basically what he's talking here is based on Dogen, Zen Master Dogen's teaching. Dogen was the founder of Japanese Soto Zen tradition. Excuse me. But Okumura Roshi was kind of a unique Zen teacher. He was not from Buddhist family. That means he was not the child or son of a priest. His family was a kind of rich person. His father had owned a company. But somehow when he was a teenager, he had a kind of a determination to live the following or based on the truth. And he tried to, and yet he found he don't know what is truth. So first he studied Western philosophy. Then he finished the graduate school, so he had a master's degree of Western philosophy. He mainly studied German philosophy. But after that he became a teacher at a Catholic seminary. So he studied Catholic theology. And yet after 6 months he found he couldn't be a Catholic because of its institutionalism. So he quit that job. And after that he became a Buddhist monk. So when he started to practice Zen, he was already about 30 years old. So often or usually Zen monks or priests or they became novice priests when they are teenagers. So from the beginning of their education, they studied Buddhism. But Okumura Roshi didn't study Buddhism until actually he studied Buddhism, Buddhist theology, not theology, Buddhist philosophy as a kind of a philosophy, because he was a philosopher. But he really started to practice Buddhism or Zen after he became 30. So he could interpret Zen Buddhist teaching from Western philosophical point of view, and he could explain or express the traditional Buddhist teaching or dharma using a Western kind of a logical, conceptual way of thinking. There were not so many such Zen master in Japan. So his teaching was kind of a unique. So when I started to study Buddhism more, then his teaching, his way of writing or expression is very kind of understandable even to me. Until then, if you, for example, if you read D.T. Suzuki's book, probably not many people who are not familiar with Zen teaching cannot even understand what he's talking about. And to us, D.T. Suzuki's book was same as how you think about that kind of expression. That means Zen is beyond understanding, that's all. So you have to practice. So you need to go to Zendo. But what Okumura Roshi is trying to do is to explain the Dharma in the understandable way for even Western people who cannot give up logical way of thinking. Then he invite those people to actually practice. So his Okumura Roshi's style of teaching is to offer or present the traditional Buddhist or Zen teachings in the way we can first understand intellectually. Then we intellectually understand that Dharma is beyond intellectual thinking. Then we can put ourselves into practice. Well, anyway, in the section 6 of this book, he talks about the meaning of Zen practice in terms of modern civilization. And basically what he said was modern civilization based on science and technology and economy is the way we find a progress. Progress means we make things better than who we are or where we are. So there's a certain goal that is better than here. That means we think this is not good enough, or I don't like this, or I don't like who I am. Therefore, I want to become better person. So there is a starting point where we think it's not good, and there's a goal that is desirable to reach, and we think in the spirituality we practice to reach that goal, or in a material world we think there are many problems we have, so this is not good. Therefore, we have to make effort, work hard to reach the goal. So this modern civilization is very much goal-oriented, and this is fine. But he pointed out, in this way of life, it's not possible, or it's very difficult to find a peace of mind, because this way of life, to go forward to reach certain goal, we have the driving force or motivation for this effort is dissatisfaction or anger against who we are, anger or hatred or dislikeness of this condition, this current condition, and we want to make it better. And of course that is fine, but because the motivation is dissatisfaction or something negative about who we are here and now. It's really difficult to find satisfaction or peace of mind. Peace of mind means satisfaction. So as far as we practice or making effort or working hard in this structure, it's very difficult to find a peace of mind. And according to traditional Buddhist teaching, this is a typical structure of making our life into samsara. I don't like certain things, and I like certain things. Therefore, I try to escape from where we are now and want to reach that better condition. That motivation is anger or dislikeness or greed toward which we want. So greed, anger, or hatred are 2 of 3 poisonous mind that makes our life into samsara, and our life becomes suffering. So it's really difficult to find a peace of mind in the way our modern people is living. So he suggests our Zazen practice is not reaching somewhere we wish or we want, or not escaping where we don't like. Our Zazen practice is peacefully being here and now. So we can find a peace of mind. We find there's no way to go. There's nowhere we need to go. Just be here and now peacefully, without dissatisfaction. And yet we work hard. Diligence is one of the Eightfold Noble Paths and also 6 parameters. So peace of mind and diligent effort is not contradicted. So this diligent effort is not based on dissatisfaction or greed or anger or hatred, but because of this peace of mind, we can walk in certain direction without losing peace of mind. And Uchamraj, not only Uchamraj, but in Buddhist tradition, this is called the middle way. So our Zazen is a practice of middle way. Middle way originally is between 2 extremes. One is self-indulgence, the way of life to satisfy our desire, and another extreme is self-mortification. And Buddha said this either way is not beneficial, not a healthy way of life. So he found within his awakening, when he sat under the Bodhi tree, he found this eightfold correct path. That is our practice. So our Buddhist practice is a practice of middle way. And he said this Zazen is, in a sense, purest form of practice of middle way. Within this just sitting, we don't escape from we don't like, and we don't chase after something we want, but we just sit peacefully. That is basically what he said in the previous section, section 6, and in this section 7, he discussed about, based on this Zazen practice, what is the attitude of our life in our daily lives when we don't sit in that Zendo. How can we live based on this Zazen practice. So the title of this section 7 is Living Wide Awake. Living Wide Awake. And the title of first paragraph is Zazen as religion. Zazen as religion. He said, our Zazen is a practice of a religion. So we need to understand what religion is. Religion has so many different meanings, or religion includes so many different things. So he said this Zazen practice is a practice of religion. And he discussed what is the religion. But this morning I'd like to read first paragraph. Let me read this paragraph. Page 109. Behind Zazen, behind this practice of Zazen, behind Zazen, there is the religion of Buddhism. And behind that, our own lives. Consequently, the true or genuine Zazen found in Buddhist scriptures was never intended as a means of discipline the mind, disciplining the mind, or of becoming physically healthier. Our ideas about a mind to be trained or a body to be made healthy are expressions of the view of existence, which presupposes that there are things that can be accumulated. The wish to train and discipline our minds and bodies is nothing but our own egoistic desire. For Zazen to function as religion, it is of primary concern to give up this ego-centered way of thinking that cling to body and mind. This is a kind of a common idea about Zen practice, at least in Japan. Zazen, practice of Zazen is to train ourselves, our discipline, to make our body stronger or healthier, and our mind enlightened. So our Zazen practice is a kind of a method or means to reach that goal. That means stronger and healthier and wiser or more enlightened person. That means we are deluded and our condition of life, physical and mental condition, is not good or not good enough. So if we practice Zazen, so-called Zen practice, then we can reach more desirable condition. And that is a kind of very common idea about Zen practice. I think not only Zen practice, but in Buddhist practice in general is considered the method to reach, we use the word nirvana. Now we are living in the samsara, and this is not good. Within samsara, our life is suffering. Everything is suffering. Therefore, we need to reach the nirvana. In order to reach nirvana, we need to practice, this Eightfold Noble Path. I think this is very common understanding of Buddhist teaching. But at least in Mahayana Buddhism, this idea is a problem. I mean, this approach of Buddhist teaching is based on dissatisfaction. We have a dissatisfaction and we want to reach satisfaction. How can we reach satisfaction with the practice based on dissatisfaction? Here is a very basic contradiction. So, in order to be free from dissatisfaction, we need to find a peace of mind here and now, not certain time in the future or somewhere else. We need to find nirvana within samsara. That is very basic teaching of Mahayana. And the problem is such a thing possible. How can we find nirvana within samsara? Because samsara and nirvana are two opposite things. But at least Mahayana teachings and Dogen's teaching, based on Mahayana teaching, is we need to practice diligently, not because of dissatisfaction, but because of appreciation or awakening that we are living within this interconnected origination. That means the reality in which everything is connected. Everything connected means without the connection or relation with others, we cannot exist even one moment. We cannot exist or live without air, and air is not me. And water or food or people's help or even what we think. When we think, we use certain language, and this language is a gift from the society. So without this support and gift and offering, we cannot live even one moment as a very ego-centered individual person. When we awaken to this reality that we are connected with everything and living together with all beings, being supported by all beings, this is not so difficult to understand. We don't need mystical practice or certain enlightenment experience, but this is really understandable reality, and this is the base of our practice: appreciation and gratitude of how we are living together with all beings. And that awakening and appreciation or gratitude is the basis of our diligent effort. Our Zazen practice is really sitting down peacefully in that interconnectedness. And when we stand up from Zazen and go out of the Zendo, then how our practice, how we can live together with all beings in harmony, because that is how we are existing. But because everything is connected, some negative or unwholesome action has also connection with all beings. So we need to be careful to not to disturb or injure this interconnectedness or harmonies. That is our practice based on our awakening. So our practice of Zazen is not a method to reach that awakening, but our practice based on that kind of very what is the word? Obvious reality. In order to understand this, we are living together with all beings. It's very understandable reality. And yet, somehow, because of our individuality, our understanding of our life as individual, we feel, I want to be better than others, stronger or more powerful than others. That makes our life competition within ourselves to become a better person or a more enlightened person, or our life become competition with other people to reach the goal. If the goal can be reached by everyone, then the goal is not so desirable. Because if we reach that goal, then we can be more powerful than other people, or richer or wealthier, or we can be happier than others. That's why we want to be there. But if we find that we cannot be happy alone, and our happiness is based on other people's unhappiness, we can be happy because we feel we are better than others. If we are seeking that kind of happiness, then there's no time we can live together with all beings. Our life is competition. This awakening or understanding of reality of interconnectedness is really based on all Buddhist, or at least Mahayana Buddhist teachings. And on that basis, that means we are already there. We are already within this network of interdependent origination. And according to Buddhist teaching, this is Dharma Dats, or world of Dharma. So we are already there. And our practice is not injure that interconnectedness, or violate, or create disharmony within this interconnectedness. And that is what this religion means when Okumura Roshi uses this word. Okumura Roshi use, or when we translate Okumura Roshi's Japanese expression into English, we have to use this word religion. But the original word Okumura Roshi used is shūkyō. If you look up Japanese English or English Japanese dictionary, religion and shūkyō are equivalent. But the etymological meaning are different. I think religion means to get tied again, restore the connection with God. That is what religion means. But shūkyō literally means Shu is truth or reality, and Kyo is teaching. And this truth or reality means truth or reality Buddha awakened to. That is Dharma. Buddha awakened to the dharma or truth or reality. And first he thought this is really difficult to share with others. Even I tried to teach, no one could understand. So Buddha has hesitation to teach. But somehow, Indra, not Indra, but what's his name? I forget the name of Indian god. Anyway, Brahman, thank you. Brahman asked Buddha to start to teach. So Buddha made his mind to stand up from his zazen and walk to the deer park and started to teach first those three monks. So in the beginning, he thought this dharma is not possible to teach. But because he made a determination, somehow he had to kind of translate this truth or reality to share with other people. And that is teaching. What Buddha taught. In order to share this dharma or reality, Buddha you had to use language. And that is what is called Buddha's teaching. And this teaching was also called dharma. So there are two kinds of dharma. First, as dharma as reality, usually with a capital D, dharma. And this is always singular. But Shakyamuni Buddha's teaching about this dharma is also called dharma. And there are many dharmas. So dharma as teaching can be plural. That means even Buddha explained about this dharma and how to discover this dharma. Depending upon the people's capability or personality, they hear different way. And in the history of Buddhism, each tradition or the masters or teachers create their own style of practice and emphasis of particular teachings. That's how many different traditions in Buddhism have been developed, depending upon the age and cultures in each Buddhist countries. So there is one singular capital D Dharma and many teachings about that Dharma. This is what is called meaning of Shukyo, reality or Dharma to which Buddha awakened to, is Shu. And the teachings about that truth or Dharma is Kyo. So actually this word Shukyo refers to Buddhism. But this Shukyo as that originally referred to Buddhism is used as an equivalent of religion, English word religion. So this is not a mistranslation, but when people like Okumura Roshi using this word religion, basically he used this religion, this Dharma and teaching about Dharma. But because of the conventional usage of this word Shukyo as an equivalent to religion, this word religion or Shukyo is used in two different ways. So we need to be careful. when he talks about this Zazen practice or Zen or Buddhism is religion, he's saying this is Shukyo as its original meaning. But and yet, Buddhism or Zen is also within certain society or culture function as religion as an institution or organization or certain fixed doctrine. And we need to have belief or faith. So even Buddhism or Dogen's so-called school or tradition become religious institution, and which has social function and connected with all different kind of so-called religious activity. For many people, religion means, in Japan, for many people, to be a Buddhist means to visit their temples they belong to visit their ancestors' graves, and ask the monks or priests to chant sutras. That is so-called ancestor worship. Or other, people go visit Buddhist temples to pray for the fortune, or that kind of things. That is considered as religious activities. And even Buddhism or Soto Zen has that kind of function in Japanese society. But when Uchimura discussed this Zen or Zazen practice is religion, he's talking about this truth and teaching about the truth. So we need to be a little careful about this difference. So he's saying, behind Zazen, there is the religion of Buddhism. In case religion of Buddhism means this structure. Buddha awakened to dharma, capital D dharma, and teach that dharma using certain teachings. And he continued, not only religion of dharma, but behind the religion of Buddhism, our own lives. Our own lives means this teaching of dharma, capital D dharma, and small d dharma. This should be something to do with our own lives. That means some kind of system of teaching which has nothing to do with this person. So we can study like a system of philosophy. It has nothing to do with I have to live in this way or that way. When we studied philosophy or science, we understand or not, and how we live has can be no connection. But when we study this dharma, and if we agree with it, we have to change our way of life. That is what he is saying. So Buddhist teaching cannot be kind of an objective theory. I can agree or not agree without connection with our own way of life. So if we study Buddhism, we have to study, and if we understand what Buddha taught is correct or right, we have to change or transform our way of life. That does not necessarily mean we become Buddhist. We don't need to become Buddhist. But if we think, we agree what Buddha taught is right or correct, then we have to change our way of life. That is what this first sentence in this paragraph means. So we have to understand Zazen practice in the structure of this category Dharma, and the teaching about Dharma, and also teaching how to discover this Dharma and live based on this Dharma. So consequently, the true or genuine Zazen found in Buddhist scriptures was never intended as a means of disciplining the mind or of becoming physically healthier. This discipline, what Okumura Roshi is pointing with, this idea about Zazen or Zen practice as discipline is a kind of a means or method that in order to gain or attain something we don't have, we need to go through this practice. Often in the West, Buddhist teaching was considered as a therapy. I think therapy is a kind of a treatment. Treatment means when we are not healthy, when we are sick, in order to restore health, we need to go through the treatment. So if we think Buddhist practice is a kind of treatment, then when we restore health, there's no need to practice further. But at least Shakyamuni Buddha continued to practice, or he practiced this Eightfold Noble Path or correct path rest of his life. Or his awakening is the starting point of his practice. When he taught Eightfold Noble Path, this Eightfold correct path is a method or path to reach awakening. That means when we are sick, this practice can be a medicine or treatment. But if our practice or Zen practice is simply the therapy or treatment, then when we restore health, we can stop it. But that is not what Buddha did. So when we are sick, this healthy way of practice can be a treatment or medicine. But when we restore health, we continue to practice, because this is a healthy way of life. That is how we practice, even when we are healthy. So basically what Okumura Roshi is saying here is our Zazen practice is not a treatment to make a sick person into healthy condition. Our ideas about the mind to be trained or body to be made healthy are expression of the view of existence. View of existence is one of the two extreme views called Wuken and Muken. That is basically what Okumura discussed. And our practice is a middle way between view of existence and view of mu or non-existence. View of non-existence is like a nihilistic view, and the view of existence is our idea there are certain fixed things existing, and we don't like this condition of this thing that is existing, and we want to make change to make this existence better. That is the basic or fundamental idea of this practice as a treatment. So it's based on our view, or one of the extreme view. That's why it's different from this structure of Shukyo. The wish to train and discipline our mind and body is nothing but our own egoistic desire. Not only our desire to be healthy, or healthier, or our mind more enlightened, is still a personal desire. He said, egoistic desire. For the Zen to function as religion, or this dharma, it is of primary concern to give up this ego-centered way of thinking that cling to body and mind. You know, I introduced Buddha's teaching that, you know, these five, Buddha taught only 5 skandhas are there. 5 skandhas are body and mind. The first element, first skandha is rupa, that is body, and other 4 skandhas or aggregates are function of our mind. So basically what Buddha said is body and mind are only there and functioning, working with the support of all other beings. But when these 5 skandhas working together like a machine, somehow these 5 skandhas create the idea of I. And 5 skandhas think this I is the owner and operator of these 5 skandhas. So 5 skandhas are kind of like a car, and this I is the owner and driver. But according to Buddha, this I is a concept, production of the 5 skandhas. But somehow 5 skandhas cling to this I as me. And these 5 skandhas, the function of 5 skandhas is a kind of tool used by this I. And what Buddha taught is this I, or in Sanskrit word Atman, doesn't really exist, only 5 skandhas. But when 5 skandhas attach themselves to this I as a owner and operator of these 5 skandhas, then Buddha said these 5 skandhas is Mara. Mara means demon. And while Buddha was sitting under the Bodhi tree, he conquered this demon. And what he found as a dharma is only 5 skandhas are there. There's no owner and operator as a fixed entity. That is what in Mahayana Buddhism, this is what is said in the Heart Sutra. When Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, when deeply practiced prajna paramita, clearly see the emptiness of 5 aggregates, 5 skandhas. When we see emptiness of 5 skandhas, we see there's no such fixed entity called I. This is only a collection of different elements. Then we find that we cannot cling to these 5 skandhas. So we are released from this clinging or attachment. That is how we see the emptiness of 5 skandhas. Then Dogen said, this is Dogen, says, this seeing 5 skandhas as 5 skandhas or emptiness is dropping off body and mind. and dropping of both body and mind is our zazen. So as a capital D dharma, what Buddha discovered and told is there's no fixed independent entity, but everything is connected with everything. But if we practice Zazen in order to make this body and mind stronger or better than others, then our Zazen practice or Zen practice itself is based on this idea of fixed identity. I want to be better than who I am, or I want to be better than others. So our practice is based on this awakening of we are living together with all beings. And also that is the source of our diligent effort. Because if we do something unwholesome, then we injure this network. So that's why we make effort to be harmonious with others. Well, that is what Okumura Roshi is saying as a connection between our Zazen practice in the meditation hall and also our practice outside of meditation hall. That means our daily lives. Based on this Zazen practice, what kind of attitude we should maintain when we live together with other people in the society, or not only people or human beings, but other beings in this world. What kind of attitude we should keep as a bodhisattva practice based on this capital V dharma.
As a what practice?
Bodhisattva practice. Well, so this is this paragraph is a kind of a connection between what Okumura Roshi discussed about Zazen practice, and he's going to discuss about our daily activity in the society, not only in the human society, but in the world. That is what I have to say this morning. Any question or comments?
I'd like to come back to the motivation to practice that comes from this insight, because when I hear about appreciation and gratitude, that I don't have a sense of a compelling desire to practice. Whereas if I think I'm going to get something out of this practice, that engages my drive in a way so that I will benefit, and there's something compelling to that. As I heard you discuss a little bit later in the talk, part of the motivation to practice is to not harm the fabric of relationship with all other beings. I want to see if I can change the language a little bit and see if it still seems true or accurate. Is it fair to say that the motivation for practice is to enhance these relationships that are already there? Not necessarily to make them better, but to but to make it better. Healthy. Well, I think we've sort of walked around this intellectually before, trying to get language for something that is, it seems extremely difficult to describe. And yet it also seems to me as if we had some of this experience, it makes sense to us in a way that may not be easily verbalized. Okay. Okay, but so I have another quick question. So if we're talking about body and mind, dropping the body and mind, from Dogen's phrase, I'm a little surprised he doesn't say dropping the I, because it seems to me that that's what's happening, is the concept of I is being released.
If I doesn't exist, how can we drop off the I?
Well, I'm
Only
going to
there
go
is
with the
body and
concept.
mind. Yeah.
But the body and mind continue as the five skandhas. They continue, not the I.
We grasp five skandhas of body and mind as I. Then this I become, I, or this five skandhas become Mara, or function as Mara become. That means we become ego-centered, self-centered. But when body and mind dropped off, he also he changed the order. Dropping of body and mind is Shinjin, that's Raku. Shinjin is body and mind, that Raku is dropping off. But he also used the expression changing the order. That's Raku Shinjin. That is, in English, body and mind that is dropped off.
Okay, you see some significance there that I don't see.
That means this body and mind, which does not attach to this I. Then this body and mind dropped off body and mind. Body and mind that is dropped off means being free from attachment.
Okay. Yeah.
Then these five skandhas function as prajna. Does it make sense?
No.
I'm sorry.
But I don't mind releasing that for now and continuing to practice and
Yeah.
seeing what happens.
Thank you. Please.
If you take the five standards as nothing existing beyond them, where in those five standards is the doctrine of interdependence created that has to be at least semi-permanent?
Pardon me, Sam?
Semi. Partially. Did you say that?
Yeah, if you have, you say you have the five standards. There's nothing in the five standards. Standards.
Five skandhas, yes.
Standards. Within the five elements that are the compositional elements of the mythical I. There's nothing in those that I can see that creates the concept of interdependence. And if there is something in there that does relate to interdependence, then interdependence has some sort of permanency, and therefore the five standards would have an element of interdependency, which, if you reconcile that with reincarnation, might work. But I don't see where they come from within the five standards, or the five elements. I don't see the link. The interdependence, it's as if it exists outside of them, and yet nothing can exist outside of them from our perception. That's supposed to be a question.
From our perception.
Right. If you take truth, reality, dharma, we don't know what truth is. Reality is illusion. Dharma is the teaching of how to define truth within reality to overcome delusion. I doesn't exist, that's an illusion. But if all that can exist in our minds and bodies are the five standards, or but the five compositional elements are much more comfortable with.
Five elements.
Within those compositional elements arises independence, interdependence.
Interdependence, okay.
Interdependence has to arise from that. I don't see how the individual components give rise to interdependence.
Please.
Is it all right if I reply quickly? If you think about the 5 elements, maybe just within themselves, they don't, you could think of them as a closed system. But the fact is that those 5 elements could not exist without things that are outside of them. For instance, my body can't exist without air or food. And so that's where interdependence enters those 5 elements. Is that correct?
Yeah, and in the Heart Sutra said, even those five elements are empty. That means even those 5 elements has no independent self nature. That means even those 5 skandhas rely on others.
Right. And they have no permanent existence. Does that help?
Not really. I see the point, and I can see that, but it doesn't reconcile the philosophical underpinning for reincarnation, which is always the Atman and Atman dilemma. And the reason is that if you're just saying that the 5 compositional elements have other kinds of things, air, food, and that sort of thing, you have in effect said that there is something greater than the sum of the parts. And if there is something greater than the sum of the parts, and it's an outside compositional element of air and food and all that sort of thing, then you could just as easily have an outside compositional element of an I that could be true.
Why is the sum greater than the parts?
If the sum can't be greater than the parts, their answer indicates that the sum has to be greater than the parts.
I don't understand how that follows.
You cannot have, if you've got emptiness that comes from each of the 5 standards, right?
I don't think it comes from them.
Or it just exists.
Mm-hmm.
It just exists. Emptiness is just there. Then to impute interdependence beyond the emptiness is illogical.
But I think the term is form. Body is one way of expressing it, but that includes every form in the whole universe. So it itself is interdependence. That's the first aggregatist form. And
Right.
The other 4 are just dependent on minds. So those 4 can be forgotten in a world that doesn't have sentient beings.
Well, that's interesting. Let me think about that.
Please, Alisa.
I think, isn't it true that interdependence and emptiness are really...
Well, emptiness is an expression of interdependence.
Mm-hmm. So for example, an atom that's a part of my leg today in 10 years could be part of the soil, which is going to produce a plant, and then later that plant will become a cow or whatever. And so the larger organizational principle maybe that you are looking for, John, would be just that process of this atom continuing on and turning into other things and continuing to support life.
I do understand that. That seems to me to be irrefutable.
Okay, great.
But what we don't get to is that if we take Buddha's teaching as true for reincarnation, and he taught that time after time after time, example after example. He talks about when he's in the building and the sun comes, and he talks about doing the rituals for his father, and he goes off and then he's killed. Buddha says he's already going to have a better rebirth. I don't think he means just as an atom off his leg in 10 years. there's something more there in that teaching, I think.
Yeah, when we discuss about Buddha's teaching of anatman, or emptiness, or no self, and reincarnation, or being born life after life, that is true. These two cannot get along. These two, even my understanding, these two, logically speaking, never get along. So I think you are correct. These two cannot be integrated. But
I was just going to say, isn't there the point? One of the 14 questions was put towards Buddha was what happens to you when you die? And the Buddha said, I can't answer that because it would not edify, it would not teach you anything.
Right, but he never said it didn't exist.
Right, and he never said it did.
No.
yeah, that is what I was talking. He kept silent.
Yes.
How can we integrate these two?
Everything I've read, I can never find anything where he says flat out, Atman doesn't exist, or the I doesn't exist. He just refuses. He sidesteps the question. At the same time, he sidesteps the question. He's pretty adamant in his teaching that reincarnation does exist.
That is true. I'm sorry.
No, I'm not sorry. I guess I'm sorry in the sense that I keep bringing it up, but I'm seeking some sort of overarching.
Yeah, this is a kind of a point of philosophical discussion from the time of Buddha until today, and we cannot find any satisfying answer how to make sense connected these two sides. So I have no answer. I'm sorry.
I know.
Please.
When you practice, does the question disappear?
In a sense, it does.
Yeah.
In a sense, it has to. And certainly that is what our lineage teaches, that it's the disappearance that is the inner awakening that comes from that. But it's still sidestepping the dilemma.
Thank you for your dilemma.
I think I have a simpler question. When you were talking about extremes, like we were talking in the middle way, you said one is desire, and other I thought you were going to say self-denial, but you didn't.
Self-mortification.
Self-mortification.
That refer to very strict ascetic practice Buddha did for 6 years before he became enlightened.
Okay, I misheard you.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much for listening.